another episode of Sci-ConnecT. I am Teacher Nell, your science teacher for today. Are you now ready to learn? Let's start! You know that an ion is a charged atom molecule? Yes, because the number of electrons do not equal the number of protons in the atom or molecule. An atom can acquire a positive charge or negative charge depending on whether the number of electrons in atoms is greater or less than the number of protons in the atom. How about why atoms or ions are formed? This is the focus of our video lesson about ion formations. Welcome grade 9 science learners for our new video lesson for today, which is all about ion formations. The most essential learning competency for this lesson is to explain how ions are formed. At the end of this video lesson, it is expected that you will learn the following. Compare a cation and anion and write their symbols or notation. Determine the charges for ions of representative elements using the periodic table. Identify ions commonly found in foods, human, body, soil, and bodies of water. Recognize the importance of these ions. But before we start, try to answer the next 5 questions. Directions. Identify what is asked or described in each item. Then write the letter of the correct answer in your notebook or in your answer sheet. Don't forget to submit your answers to your science teacher. Please take your time to read the questions while I'm reading it to you. Number 1, a negatively charged ion is called blank. A. Atom, B. Anion, C. Cation, D. Electron. Number 2, a positively charged ion is called blank. A. Atom, B. Anion, C. Cation, D. Electron. Number 3, how do anions form? A. Atoms share electrons with other atoms. Atoms gain one or more valence electron. Letter C. Atoms lose one or more valence electrons. Letter D. Electrons gain or lose energy as they change orbitals. Number 4. An atom becomes blank when it loses electrons. A. Invisible, B. Negative, C. Neutral, D. Positive. Number 5. What is ion? A. A large atom, B. A small atom, C. A charged atom, D. None of the above. Before we start our discussion or before we have our different activities, we have to define specific words or words that are used in our video lesson. Ion is formed when 2 or more electrons are removed from or added to a neutral atom, a charged particle of the same element. Cation is an anion with a positive charge. Anion is an anion with a negative charge. Let us try to have the first activity. Think a name. Procedure. Out of these elements, provide the chemical name and formula with the help of a clue or hint. Then answer the guide questions found on the next slide. Sodium or your Na. Potassium or K. Cl or your chlorine. Ca or calcium. Clue or hint. An ingredient in many manufactured foodstuffs, commonly known as table salt. What is the chemical name of this formula? Or what is the chemical name or the formula with the help of the clue or hint? Guide questions. Number 1, how many ions when salt is formed? How do these ions interact to form a salt? Keep this in mind that ions, an atom is neutral. It has neither a positive nor a negative charge. In order for an atom to be neutral, the number of electrons must equal the number of protons. Remember that the number of electrons must equal the number of protons in order for an atom to be neutral. The positive and negative charges cancel each other. If an atom does not have the same number of protons and electrons, an ion is formed. When an atom loses or gains one or more electrons, it acquires a net electrical charge and it is called an ion. The sodium ions and chloride ions are held together by the strong electrostatic attractions between the positive and negative charges. You need one sodium atom to provide the extra electron for one chlorine atom, so they combine together 1:1 ratio. The formula is therefore sodium chloride. Try to look how the number of electrons shared from a sodium chloride. As you can see, the electron of sodium transferred to chloride or chlorine to form a sodium chloride. Remember that your sodium is your cation while your chlorine is your negative anion or your anion. Let us explore another activity. It is called Am I an Ion or an Atom? Part A. Match each of the positive ions listed with the total number of electrons that ion contains. Use your periodic table. The same answer may be used more than once. Write your answer in your notebook or your activity sheet. A, you have 2. B, you have 10. C, 21. D, 23. A, 24. F, 25. G, 36. H, 48. I, 76. And J, 81. You have EL, positive 3. FE, positive 23. MG, positive 2. SN, positive 2. LI, positive 1. CR, positive 3. RB, positive 1. And PT, positive 2. Part B. Complete the diagram by writing or drawing the correct number of electrons in each energy level of atoms and each corresponding ions. If the energy level is not enough, you may add energy level to accommodate the total electrons of the given atom and ion. Fill up also the table with the missing data about the given atoms and ions. An example is given as your guide to do this activity. Write your answer in your notebook or your answer sheet. Rubidium atom. What is the proton and the electron and the charge? Rubidium atom. What is the positive? The proton and the electron. Calcium atom. Calcium ion. Nitrogen atom. Nitrogen ion. Try to watch this video for you to get all the idea about atom, the ion. For you to understand more about what is an ion, try to watch this video.
outside, I have these electrons, which I've drawn as black dots. If you know a lot about atoms, you might know that I've left out neutrons, which also live in nucleus. But it's no big deal, because neutrons don't have a charge at all. They're neutral, so they're not important for what we're talking about. Anyway, right now, sodium has, if we counted them, 11 protons here in the nucleus, and it has 11 electrons flying around outside. So the number of protons equals the number of electrons, which means that my total net charge is 0. They cancel each other out. And so something that has no net charge, like this sodium atom, we call it neutral. Okay? Here's what can happen with sodium. See this electron right here? It can lose this electron. It can lose it, and it flies off, usually goes into another atom. So let's look at what happens when this electron here gets lost. And now we're going to end up with a sodium atom that has 11 protons, just like it did before. But now because it's lost this electron, it used to be here, it was here, now it's not here anymore. Now it only has 10 electrons. So now the positive and negative charges don't balance out anymore, and I'm left with more positive charge than negative charge. So this thing now is going to have a charge of +1, one more positive charge and negative charge. And so I can write this, if I want to talk about the atom, I can write it as Na plus to show that it has a positive charge. Whereas this, when I'm talking about a neutral atom, I'll probably just write Na. So Na plus here is an example of an ion. It's an atom that has a charge, and it's a specific type of atom. We have a name for this. We call it a cation, which is what we call an ion. We call any ion that has a positive charge. Okay? Let me show you another example. Okay, so here's an atom of oxygen. The atom that I've drawn here has 8 protons here in the nucleus, and it has 8 electrons outside. So we have the same number of protons and electrons, which means that the total charges balance out, plus and minus balance out. So I have a net charge of 0, and I can say that my oxygen atom is neutral. It has no net charge. But oxygen can gain or lose electrons, and actually it really likes to gain 2 electrons. And here's a picture of the oxygen atom after it's gained 2 electrons. And now it still has 8 protons. Now if I count up these electrons, it now has 10 electrons instead of 8, which it had before. So now the protons and electrons don't balance out. And I have more negative charge than I have positive charge. I've got 2 more electrons and protons. So that means that my total net charge is going to be 2 minus. I can write the symbol for this ion as O2 minus to show that it has a 2 minus charge. Whereas this neutral guy over here, I can just write O. This is an ion because it has a charge. And there's a specific name for it. We can call this an anion, which is the word that we use to describe a negatively charged ion that has more electrons than protons. Okay, here's just a little bit of vocabulary. So an ion is an atom or a group of atoms that have a charge. Okay. Now, it's possible for an atom to be neutral, which means it has no charge. It means it's not an ion. But if something is an ion, it can be either a cation, which is what we call a positive ion, or it can be an anion, which is negative. Here's a way that I use to remember. Okay. Anion. I think of this as standing for a negative ion. Okay? And then cation, you can remember this, it's really cheesy. You can remember that cats have paws, and a cation is positive. Alright? You'll never forget. I swear, you'll never forget. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to mention. I've said that an ion is an atom or a group of atoms with charge. I haven't said anything yet about a group of atoms. So more than one atom can come together, they can stick together and form a group or a clump. And then that whole clump of atoms has a charge. When this happens, we call it polyatomic ion, a group of atoms that have a charge. Poly means many, and atomic. You have many atoms together to form an ion. I'll talk about polyatomic ions in future videos, so you want to check those out if you need to learn more about poly. Anyway, just to review what we've learned. We learned that an ion is an atom or a group of atoms that have a charge. And something gets a charge when the number of protons and electrons don't balance out. If you have more protons than electrons, you'll have an ion with a positive charge, called a cation. If you have more electrons than protons, you have an ion with a negative charge. You call that an anion.
Next, you have to explore the importance of ions in human body. Directions. Read the statement below and answer the guide questions. Negative ions act on the nervous system with a relaxing effect. They also facilitate the acquisition of oxygen from the air into the lungs and power the functions of the organism, also improving its defenses, which have a beneficial effect on the entire cardiovascular, endocrine, and the nervous systems. Through the influence on the nervous system, there is then the influence on the various functions of the organism and on the processes of development of cells that compose it by stimulating the internal production of certain substances. Negative ions raise the blood pH, stimulating the production of red blood cells that are a great anti-anemic, reduce cholesterol in the blood, and therefore are useful to prevent strokes, exert a beneficial effect in the bronchial tubes, lungs, and throughout the nervous system. In short, they improve overall physical conditions. An American research has shown that the neurohormone called serotonin regulates various psychophysiological processes affecting the nervous system and changing our behavior. If produced in excess by our body, this hormone causes physical depression, lack of memory, loss of appetite, high blood pressure, nervousness, etc. Negative ions have the property of attacking the serotonin, reducing its presence in the organism, thus eliminating physical depression, lack of memory, nervousness, and hypertension. Guide questions. Number 1. What happens if there is an excess or deficiency of these ions, say calcium ions and sodium ions? Number 2. What are the ions commonly found in A. Foods, B. Human body, C. Soil, D. Bodies of water? Take note, class, that the importance of ions in dietary minerals are mainly inorganic ions. They are essential nutrients that must be obtained from the diet. Some of the more important ions in the cells and fluids of our bodies are: sodium ions are the principal cations found outside cells in the body. They help regulate and control the level of body fluids. Too little lead leads to diarrhea, anxiety, a decrease in body fluids, and circulatory failure. However, most people have the opposite problem: too much sodium ion ingested mainly as table salt and salty snack foods. Too much increases water retention, leading to high blood pressure or hypertension. Potassium ions are the principal cations found inside cells in the body. Bananas, orange juice, and potatoes are good sources of potassium ions. Help regulate cellular functions including nerve impulses and heartbeats and the level of body fluids. Chloride ions are the principal anions found outside cells in the body. They serve as counter ions or ions necessary to balance electrical charge for the extracellular fluid and for in gastric juice. Magnesium ions are found mainly in the bones, but they are also vital components of many enzymes, which are substances our bodies need in order to release energy from the food we eat. Good sources are green vegetables, is a component of the chlorophyll in green plants, milk, bread, cereals, and potatoes. About 85% of the phosphorus containing ions in the body are in the bones, where they act as the counter ions, for also they play an important role in energy production from food. Good sources of phosphate are milk and other dairy products, cereals, and meat. In addition to the above ions, the body needs smaller amounts of ions found in trace minerals. These include the ions iron 2, chromium 3, copper 2, zinc, fluoride, iodide, and bicarbonate. as well as the hydrogen ion. Also required are compounds of manganese, molybdenum, and selenium, although these are not necessarily in form of simple ions. Take a picture showing of a particular body of water in your locality. Discuss the possible diseases that may arise from the situation to be rated using the following criteria: content 40%, relevance to the theme 30%, congruency 30%, total 100%. This will be your additional task. For your reflection, kindly write down in your paper, I have learned that. Can you please post your answer? Then what I wish to ask my teacher about. Then don't forget to submit your reflection to your science teacher. This time, let us check your knowledge or the gained knowledge you have learned from this video lesson about the ionic formations. So let us have the assessment. Number 1, a positively charged ion is called blank. A. Atom, B. Anion, C. Cation, D. Electron. Number 2, a negatively charged ion is called blank. A. Atom, B. Anion, C. Cation, D. Electron. Number 3, how do anions form? A. Atoms share electrons with other atoms. B. Atoms gain one or more valence electrons. C. Atoms lose one or more valence electrons. Letter D. Electrons gain or lose energy as they change orbitals. Number 4. An atom becomes blank when it loses electrons. A. Invisible, B. Negative, C. Neutral, D. Positive. Number 5. What is ion? A. A large atom, B. A small atom, C. A charged atom, D. None of the above. Number 6. A proton has what charge? A. Negative, B. Positive, C. No charge, D. None of the above. Number 7. What is the charge of an atom that has lost one electron? A. Negative 1, B. Positive 1, C. Negative 2, D. Positive 2. Number 8. What is the charge of an atom that has gained one electron? A. Negative 1, B. Positive 1, C. Negative 2, D. Positive 2. Number 9. What are principal cations found outside cells in the body? A. Sodium ions, B. Calcium ions, C. Potassium ions, D. Magnesium ions. Number 10. What happens when an atom gains an electron? A. It stays the same, B. It becomes negatively charged, C. It becomes positively charged, D. It becomes neutral because the protons also leaves. Congratulations, learners, for finishing the video lesson. I hope you enjoyed learning with me today. Remember, learning is fun with Sci-ConnecT.